Hello everyone, good evening. Sharing my screen. So we've covered web service basics in our previous session. We did cover the SOAP service and REST API basics. And before we get started with building integrations in OIC, see normally what is your role in integration projects, guys, especially if you start as a developer, your role would start you would basically receive an email from your lead, and in that email you would have an OIC instance link, a username and a password. And what is it that you would be doing, guys? You would basically go ahead and log into OIC instance using those credentials. Remember, I've sent you onboarding email, right? In that onboarding email, there is an OIC instance, a username and password. You would basically log into it with that log into OIC instance with a username and password that's shared with you, and you would start doing the development work. This is what you normally start off with in an integration project. But I'm pretty sure that at least some of you are going to play the role of an integration lead. Yes, Anjanelu.
Yeah, Prasad, I have a little, we have like OCI and OIC, right?
I'll talk about it. By the time we complete this session, you would understand what is the difference and all the questions towards the end of the session. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you would when we this is what you normally do. You log into OIC instance as a developer with a username and password, and then you would get into the individual cloud services like integrations, VBCS, OPCS, and you do the development work. But since some of you, at least a few of you, are going to play the role of an integration lead, you also need to understand what happens in the background. Who creates this OIC instance? Where is it created from? What is OCI? So these are all the things that you need to know. Remember, guys, whatever I'm going to explain today, whatever I'm going to explain in today's session, you would not be doing this in real time. You're not going to be the person creating OIC instance users or assigning roles. It would be done by typically OCI administrator. And whatever I'm going to show you today, it is only for your knowledge sake. And also, OCI administrator, when he performs these activities like creating OIC instance or users, they might get stuck and they might ping you if you are an integration lead, and they might seek your inputs. So the intention behind doing this session is, yes, you need to understand what happens in the background, and you also need to understand what are the answers that you need to give to OCI administrator. Okay. So with the logins that we have shared with you, you won't be able to log into OCI, and you should not be logging into OCI. Even in real time, you won't do it. So nobody is going to give you access to OCI. It's not required at all. Okay. So the key takeaway is you don't have to do the hands-on for what we are going to do today. Now, what exactly do we do? First 5 minutes, I am going to give you overview of OCI. OCI stands for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It is basically a screen from where you can provision various infrastructure services that Oracle offers in cloud. Okay, so if any client wants to migrate their infrastructure into cloud or deploy their infrastructure into cloud, they would have to get an Oracle Cloud account for themselves first. And with that cloud account, they would be logging into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure screen. And from there, client would be able to provision any infra services that Oracle provides. So I'll give you an overview of that screen first. And after that, we will understand how to create OIC instance, Oracle Integration Cloud from that OCI console. Don't think that it is a typo, guys. OCI stands for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OIC stands for Oracle Integration Cloud. So we will see what is OCI. Then we will understand how to create OIC instance. And after that, we will also understand how to create users and grant them access to OIC instance. Okay, 3 simple steps. What is OCI, how to create OIC instance, and how to create user and roles. Okay, let's get started. So how do we log into OCI console? And one important point, guys, all questions towards the end of the session, there is a linkage between one step and the other step that we're going to do today. So if you have any questions, have a notepad beside you and just jot those questions down. So I will log into OCI console first, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. How do we do it, guys? So we just have to go to cloud.oracle.com, use a URL called cloud.oracle.com. So this is a link that you need to use to log into OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The moment you try to log into it, you would be prompted to enter a cloud account name. So every client would have a unique cloud account name. And usually the OCI cloud account name, the Oracle cloud account name would be named after the client. So if you are probably doing this for HSBC, you would probably see the cloud account name as HSBC, followed by maybe some random number in there. And if you're doing it for some, say, for example, a client like Emerson, you would probably see the client name itself there. So I'm going to log into OCI first with a cloud account that I have. And the moment you try to log in, you would be taken to a sign up page. And I'm going to sign into this OCI console, not as a user one or not with the credentials that we shared with you, but I'm going to log in as an OCI administrator. Please don't ask for a password of this OCI administrator, guys. We're not going to share it, and no client is going to share it with you either. Okay, so I'm going to log in as OCI administrator. There is an MFA enabled. Only if I approve it from my mobile, we would be able to log in. I've approved it. And once you get into this particular screen, you would be able to see. So this is what we call as a Oracle Cloud Infrastructure screen. This is what we call as a Oracle Cloud Infrastructure screen. Any client who wants to deploy their infrastructure into cloud, they would have to get a cloud account and they need to come into this screen. Now, what are the things that you could do, guys, from here? You can launch a virtual machine, maybe a Windows or a Linux machine you need to deploy an application, you can do that. And if your application needs a database, you can provision it. Remember, you have two databases that you see here of autonomous type. And you can, you can launch a virtual machine, attach a DB to it, and you can also set up a network around it so that you can control who can come in and who can go out. So in short, any client who wants to deploy their infrastructure into cloud, their custom applications into cloud, they can do so by coming into the screen. So you see some quick start options here. And if you click on the navigator, you would be able to see a whole lot of infra services that Oracle provides: compute, storage, networking, etc. Now this OCI, what is it called as, guys? OCI is infrastructure. OCI is infrastructure as a service. It is called IaaS. Now, what are the other leading vendors in the market available today, guys, for infrastructure as a service? Say, for example, if you want to deploy your infrastructure into cloud, what are the other leading vendors which provide solutions for it? You have Amazon Web Services, Azure from Microsoft, Google Cloud. Did you hear them, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are the leading vendors in the market. So if any client wants to deploy their infra to cloud, I can, if I'm a client, I can go to Amazon or I can go to Microsoft or I can go to Google, get their cloud account, and I can deploy my infrastructure to their services. And similarly, Oracle also has a similar offering, and that is what we call as Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It's an IaaS offering. Now, why did we come in here? Obviously, not to do an OCI session. We have a different training course altogether for OCI that goes on for roughly 50 hours, which it is a very vast and a deep topic. Now, the reason I brought you in here is I just wanted to show you how to create an OIC instance from here. Now, to create an OIC instance, you need to click on the navigator here, and you can type in integrations. You can type in integration and get into it. Now, the moment you come into integrations here, so you see that there is one integration instance created in this tenancy. There is one integration instance which is created in this tenancy or in this account, Oracle Cloud account. Remember, you can create any number of instances you want. So to create an OIC instance, we have to log into OCI. And who does it, guys? Typically, OCI administrator will do it. they would come into this particular screen and they would hit the create button and create an OIC instance from here. Now, when we create OIC instance or when OCI admin does it, there are 3 or 4 things that they have to enter. First, they have to give a name to the OIC instance. Now, we always give it a meaningful name, guys. So what's the name that we normally give to OIC instance? You would mention a short name of a client. Say, for example, if you're doing this for HSBC, you mention HSBC. And you would also mention what is it that you want to do in this OIC instance. Is it a development that you want to do? Or is it an SIT that you want to do? Or is it that you want to use this as a production instance? Okay, so a shortcut to the client name, a phase of the project that you want to manage in this OIC instance. And we also use a keyword called OIC. And we don't give any space or underscore in between, guys. So it would be the client short name, phase of the project, and OIC keyword. Now, one important point, guys, what are the typical phases that you would see in an implementation project, guys? You have development, SIT, UAT, production, right? Do we have a separate instances for each phase, guys? Do we have separate EBS instances or ERP cloud instances for each phase?
Yes.
Yes.
In an exactly similar fashion, we would also have different instances for different OIC instances for each phase of the project. An OCI administrator would come in here, and whenever there is a need for new OIC instance, and they would create it from here, give it a name, phase of the project, OIC keyword. And we can select, and we see that the integration instance which is getting created here is of Gen 3. Remember, guys, we're going to use Gen 3 of OIC instance as part of the training course. Nobody is doing it in the market today. So Gen 2 is an old version, Gen 3 is the latest one, and this is what we're going to use. And even the instance that I shared with you folks, this instance, it is a Gen 3 instance. The look and feel that you see here is completely different from what you see in Gen 2. And yes, you need to pick an edition here. And this is where OCI administrator is going to ping you. So say, for example, if Anjanelu is leading an integration project, is a lead, and his OCI administrator would ping him and ask him, boss, can you please let me know whether I need to create an instance, OIC instance, as a standard or as an enterprise edition? Now, if you probably don't do this session, Anjanelu, will you know the answer for this question? You certainly.
I am actually thinking like standard.
Yeah.
Enterprise
You
standard.
basically have to do a guesswork there, right? So for that reason, I'm doing this particular session. So if you see, for you to answer this question, basically, you yourself need to know what is the difference between these two, right? What's the difference between these two? Yes, go on.
The standard is like which Oracle provides, whereas enterprise means like according to the requirement, it will be customized and given the access to us. Am I correct, Prasad?
No, that is not right. That is not right. It might add to confusion to the students. Okay, let me explain what is a standard and enterprise edition. Both editions basically come from Oracle. So can know 2 things about it. Both can come from Oracle. And in standard, you get integrations VBCS. In standard, you get integrations plus VBCS. But if it is enterprise, you get integrations plus VBCS plus PCS as well. Okay, standard, you get only 2. Enterprise, you get all 3. And in standard, within the integrations part, some of the adapters would be missing. On-prem application adapters would be missing. Now, the first question that you might ask is, Prasad, what is on-prem application? Any application which is running on the premises of the client, it could be an e-business suite application, it can be a PeopleSoft application, it can be an FTP server or a database server. So any application running on-premise is called on-premise application, and to connect to them, we need to use adapters. So those on-prem adapters would be missing here. A standard would be integrations minus on-prem adapters plus VBCS. Enterprise, standard plus on-prem adapters plus PCS. So when OCI administrator asks you this question, like what is the addition they need to ask, or they need to go for, what is it that you need to do, guys? You need to ask yourself two questions basically. What are those two questions, guys? Do I need PCS in my project or not? Basically, I'm making this decision as an integration lead. Do I need PCS or not? Well, if the answer is yes, what addition do we need to go for, guys? I have a requirement to build some custom processes, custom approval flows. So what addition do I need to ask OCI admin to go for? If I need PCS, obviously enterprise.
Enterprise, yeah.
If the answer is no, then I need to ask myself another question. No, then I need to ask myself another question as well, right? Do I need on-prem adapters or not? Meaning, is there a requirement to talk to on-prem applications like EBS or on-prem FTP server or on-prem a database server, etc.? And if the answer is no, again here, this is not required and this is not required, then we can go for standard. If your answer is yes for either of them, then we have to ask the client to go for enterprise. And one important point for you to bear in mind, guys. So the cost of enterprise edition is double that of a standard edition. Okay, I'm not exactly sure in terms of dollars, but yes, if you're charged $1 here, you would be charged $2 for it here, enterprise. So only if it is required, you ask the OCI administrator to go in for enterprise edition. And another tip I want to give you here, guys. So normally, I think most of you are Indians here, right? So we have, okay, I don't want to rationalize it. So we also have a typical tendency to play it safe, right? So Anjaneya might say, Prasad, I got your point. Okay, I don't need PCS today. I don't need on-prem adapters today. Okay, I'll ask my OCI admin to go in for standard edition. But what do I need to do, Prasad, tomorrow or maybe 2 weeks down the line? I got a requirement wherein I had to connect to on-prem application. What do I need to do? So let me do it this way, Prasad. Even though I don't really need it today, I'll play it safe. I will ask him to go for enterprise edition. Possible thinking? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, yes.
So you don't have to think on those lines, guys. The reason is edition is something that you pick up. Edition is something that you pick up when you create OIC instance. And even after you create OIC instance, you can edit it and you can change it as well.
Yes.
Okay, edition is something that you pick when you create it and you can change it later on. So depending on the visibility that you have at that point in time, guys, make that decision. And third point is 10 out of 10 clients would go in for enterprise edition, guys. The reason is Oracle has played it really well here. Not most of them need PCS, but everybody needs on-prem adapters. So Oracle, most of the clients, 10 out of 10, I would say, would go for enterprise edition. Okay, so these are a few things that you need to bear in mind. And after this, yes, we advised OCI admin accordingly. And we need to select a shape here, guys, development and production. Production means when any new features are released, they would be deployed to the development instances first. And which means even if something goes really wrong, it's not really a problem. And if you create it as a production instance or a shape as production, what it means is if any new feature is released by Oracle, it would be deployed 2 weeks after it is deployed to the dev instances in the market. So what it means that if there are some bugs which are uncovered, at least those would get fixed in 2 weeks' time. Okay, that's what it means. So shape, depending on if it is a development SIT or UAT instance, you go for development. And if it is production, you go for production. And the third point is we need to select a license type. So there are two possible licenses here, guys. Obviously a new license, one option. And there's another option called bring your own license. Remember, guys, Oracle has a lot of Fusion middleware products. Oracle has a lot of Fusion middleware products, guys. They have SOA, ODI, they have OIC, and there are a lot of other products as well. And if your client has a Fusion middleware license, just in case they are using any of that middleware product, then your client would come under this bucket. And if they don't use it, they come into this bucket. So you need to ask your client whether they have a new license or whether they have an existing license, or do we need to go for a new license. And depending on the license type, you see that the number of messages change here. So first of all, you mention a number of message packs here as 1 or 2 or 3. You can increase or decrease them as you wish. And the number of messages that you will have in a message pack would be dependent on the type. So if it is a new license, it would have 5,000 messages. If it is an existing license, it would contain 20,000 messages. Now, if you, in most of the cases, it would be new license guys, or from what I've seen with the clients. Okay, so if we go for a new license, and if we pick up a message pack as 1 here, what does it mean, guys? It means that we can transmit up to 5,000 messages per hour. Well, the first question that comes to your mind is, Prasad, what the hell is this message per hour? I really didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what is it? So just to explain this, what exactly this message is, let me take you into OIC instance, guys. And I want you guys to focus only on what I'm explaining. I might be going into few screens doing something in there. Focus only on what I'm explaining. I'm going to pick up one of the integration. Remember, this is a first integration that we're going to build for your batch as well, starting from Monday. It's basically a Hello World REST API. And it on all this REST API does is it takes in first name as input. It's going to prefix hello to the first name and send it back. So all I'm going to do is, yes, it is in active status. I'm going to run this integration, right? I'm going to run the integration, trigger it, and it is prompting me to pass in first name. And I'm going to pass in Geeks as input here. And I run it. Now, the moment I run this integration, what is it going to do? So the integration is going to prefix hello. So this logic and the build of the integration, we will start doing it from Monday. And the moment you trigger an integration, first of all, you got a result. Okay, that's fine, well and good. But you also notice that there is an instance ID generated here. Okay, there's also an instance ID generated. So any integration triggered in a OIC instance, doesn't matter how it is triggered, guys, whether we trigger it manually to do the unit testing, or the integration gets triggered based on a schedule, or some other application like Salesforce triggers it whenever a customer is created. To keep it simple, it really doesn't matter how the integration is triggered, but whenever an integration built and deployed in the OIC instance is triggered, there would be an instance created. And where else can you see this instance details? Guys, I'm in a test page, right? I might come out of the screen, but this instances, you should be able to monitor them as well, right? So if you go into OIC instance, you click on the menu option here, guys. You click on the menu option here. You see that there is something called as observability here. Observability meaning monitoring. It used to be monitoring earlier. They've renamed it. Maybe they didn't like the word. Observability means monitoring. You click on it and you click on integrations. It tells you what integrations have been triggered recently. This integration has been triggered 2 minutes ago. A message for this API has been received 2 minutes ago. Request received, processed successfully. And to see the message, you click on the number. And the moment you click on it, you are navigated from integrations to instances. And whatever integration that you picked up there, that is applied as a filter, and you see that there is one instance here. To keep it simple, one instance is equal to one message. One instance is equal to one message. So if I go for one message path, I can use up to 5,000 messages per hour. What does it mean, guys? I can trigger up to 5,000 integrations, or I can create up to 5,000 instances. And those instances can be of 5,000 different integrations, or they can be of same integration. It doesn't really matter. On a very high level, you can think of one instance ID is equal to one message. But if you dig a bit deep, if you go one level below, you would notice that sometimes, even though it is one instance, it might be counted as multiple messages. When is that the case, guys? It depends on what you're doing within the integration, and it also depends on what you are receiving as input into the integration. So let's say you've built an integration, and in the integration, you're processing a file. Okay, you're picking up a file from SFTP, loading it to cloud. As long as that file is up to 50 KB in size, that's fine. But the moment size exceeds 50 KB, even though it is one instance ID, it might be counted as multiple messages. So if you process a file which is 500 KB in size, even though it is one instance ID, how many messages would it be counted as, guys? 10 messages. Because how many 50 KBs are there in 500? 10, right?
10.
So that's how it works. And sometimes to this integration, we were just passing first name as input, right? Just one parameter. Tomorrow, when we create AP invoice REST API, we're going to pass in a request payload as input. And when we pass in that request payload as input, it might, and if that request payload exceeds 50 KB again, maybe you triggered an integration with 100 KB payload, guys. Even though it is one instance, how many messages would it be counted as?
Two.
Two messages. So that's how it works. So we don't have to do an R&D in terms of billing, guys, but just get a high level understanding of it. So we normally go in for one message pack, which means every hour Oracle is going to put 5,000 messages into RKT. And the main thing is you can also see the usage of the messages, guys. So if you go into dashboards here, rather than you and me, it would be the client who would be worrying about it, guys, who would be worrying more about it. So you can change the dates as well if you want. So for example, if you see here, you would be able to see that if you do a per hour billing, or if you check in the last 24 hours, so what is it that you see, guys? So at 9 o'clock, from 9 to 10, how many messages were triggered, guys? You see that there are almost 35 messages triggered. And you also get to see how many, you also get to see the status as well. Okay, so every hour you get to see how many of them. So this is basically the trace level. So you see two icons, right? So don't get confused. So the second bar indicates the completion status, green means success, error, warning. And this means what is the trace level? Trace level in the sense we'll worry about it when we do the first integration. I'll talk in detail about it. So, but for now, just worry about this. So between 9 to 10, how many messages were used, guys? Roughly 34. Yes, guys, 34. What would happen to the remaining messages, guys, in 5,000? They will be lost.
Lost, yes.
Yeah. So this is not like a Airtel or a mobile geo data pack. Okay, it's not like an internet data pack wherein unused data gets carried forward, right? It doesn't work that way with OIC messages. It's like Oracle says, boss, I'm going to give you 5,000 credits. Either you use it or you lose it. I don't really care. Okay. And what we normally do is we go in for one message pack, keep monitoring it here in dev SIT and UAT. And the moment it reaches 4,000 limit, what is it that we would do, guys? We would increase it and make it 2 message packs. And similar to the edition, guys, you don't need to play it safe with message packs. You pick it up when you create an OIC instance, and you can increase or decrease it as you wish. Okay, we usually go for 1. The moment it crosses 4,000 or 4,500, we would increase it to 2. Well, the fancy question that everybody would be waiting to ask in this particular session. Prasad, I have gone for 1 message pack. It crossed 5,000 limit. What would happen to the other messages? To be frank, I really don't know, guys, because we never leave it that late. And when the number of messages reach at least 3,500 or 4,000, we usually push it to 2 message packs. If you run into that situation and when you know the answer, do let me know as well. My guess is, I think Oracle would charge you more for those additional messages. That's what my guess is, but I don't know. Okay, so that's the story with the message packs. And the moment you hit the create button here, it shouldn't take more than 3 to 5 minutes for a new OIC instance to be provisioned. And once it is provisioned, I'm not going to hit create, guys. Once it is provisioned, you will see an entry showing up here like this. You would see the instance name, version number, what is its status. And you would also be able to see within the OIC instance, you would be able to see the instance URL. So this is the OIC instance link that OCI administrator is going to share with you. Okay, they're going to copy this and they're going to throw this URL to you and your team, integration team. Okay. Now, so that's a step number one. And let's say there are five members in an integration team. Okay. Let's say John Doe is an integration lead and 4 developers are there who needs to do the development. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to create these users. Now, one important point, guys, if it is a Fusion Cloud application, or even if it is EBS, it's one and the same. One and the same in the sense the way you create users. So if it's Fusion Cloud application, you log into it with a username and password. And I'm logging in as a user with admin access here. I'm logging in as a finance implementation user who has IT security manager role, which means this user has access to manage the users. So once you log into the Fusion Cloud application, let's give it 1 minute. Okay. It's not connected to the right Wi-Fi, guys. I'm just waiting for a login page to come up. I was connected to a wrong Wi-Fi. I connected to the right Wi-Fi now. So once you get into a Fusion Cloud application, you can you can go into Tools Group and you go into Security Console, and and you would be creating users within the Fusion Cloud application itself. So if you have to create a new user and grant them access to the OIC instance, grant them access to a Fusion Cloud application or EBS, what do we normally do, guys? We log in as a user with admin access and we go to relevant screen. If it is EBS, you log in as a user with sysadmin role, go to that particular responsibility and you create a user. And if it is a Fusion Cloud application, you log in as a user with admin access and you go to users. And when you go to users, you have an option here. You have an option to search for, you have an option to create a new user from here. So this is what we
your
normally
voice
do.
is breaking.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Yeah. So we can, so what is it?
Still it is breaking, Prasad.
I think Prasad side is okay.
Yeah, we don't see that issue.
Yeah, Prasad's voice is perfectly all right from my end.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what is it that we normally do in case of a Fusion Cloud application or EBS? You log into the application as an administrator and you create the user from. But in case of OIC, it doesn't work that way, guys. In case of OIC, it doesn't work that way. Instead, and if you go into OIC, right, you would not find a screen from where you can create a user. So it works in a different fashion. Just give me 1 moment, guys. Yeah. So in case of integrations, we don't have an option to create a user within OIC instance. Instead, we need to do it within the OCI itself. So after you create an OIC instance, we don't have a provision to create user within OIC. Instead, we need to click on the menu option here, identity and security. Click on identity You don't need to remember all these steps, guys, because there is an OCI administrator who will worry about it, and he gets paid for this, not you and me. Now, this particular screen is called as Identity Domain Cloud Service, and this is where we create users. Okay, so we create users here in Identity Domain Cloud Service. And Identity Domain Cloud Service is going to provide authentication services to other cloud services that you provision from OCI, whether it is an OIC instance, whether it is a SOA cloud service, whether it is a Java cloud service, whether it is a process cloud service. So any application cloud service doesn't matter. So the Oracle, the Identity Domain Cloud Service that we have here would provide authentication services for it. So the first thing that we need to do is, we've seen how to create OIC instance, and we are going to see how to create a user here. So if there are 5 users who are supposed to work in an integration team, we come in here, we create a user, give it a name. So if John Doe is going to be the integration lead, so you enter a first name and last name. And if a client uses or wants to use email itself as username, you can leave this turned on, and you can say john.doe @oracle.com. And if they want to use a different username, not same as email, then you can have a 2 different fields. So if you uncheck this, username would be different from email. Okay, you enter the first name, last name, the username, email address. And the moment you hit the create button here, an activation email will be sent to this. So John is going to receive an email which says, John, welcome to so-and-so tenancy. Please click on the link below to activate your user account. So whatever typically happens whenever you create a new user anyway, right? Whether it is a Facebook or Twitter, you would immediately receive an activation email, right? In a similar fashion, you receive an activation email. In that activation email, there would be a username. And when user activates the account, they would be prompted to set the password. Okay. So the users would know the username and the password, and they would also know the OIC instance URL. They would also know the OIC instance URL as well, because OCI admin has shared it. And if some people are curious or they want to be proactive, they would immediately, as soon as they activate their account, they would try to access the OIC instance link shared by OCI administrator. Well, what you need to understand is, yes, after the users are
Again,
created,
voice is breaking, Prasad.
Is it a problem for others as well, guys?
No, Prasad.
No, Prasad. For
No.
my side,
No,
no.
Anjanela, I would request you to please go through the recording for today, or get yourself a better network. Okay. Yeah. So we would be able to, so we see the users here. So in integration instance creation is step 1, user creation is step 2. And after the users are created here, do they automatically get access to OIC instance, guys? It doesn't work that way. Instead, you need to do a third step. After you create the users, we need to grant them access to OIC instance. How do we do it, guys? We go into Oracle Cloud Services. And if you scroll down here, you will be able to see those OIC instances here. Whatever OIC instance you created, those OIC instances would be showing up here. If you have created 4 OIC instances, dev, SIT, UAT, and production, you would see those 4 OIC instances showing up here as integration cloud service. Now I go into this dev OIC instance. If I want to give access of this OIC instance to my users, after I created this OIC instance, I created 4 users. Now I want to grant them access to this OIC instance. How do I do it? I come down, I click on users here. When I click on users, this tab shows me the users which have access to a OIC instance. Okay, so currently 3 users have got access to this OIC instance. But do you guys see an option to add or delete a user from here, guys?
No.
So, no, right?
No.
And what does this informational message says? What does it say? To manage these users, under resources list, you have application roles. So I need to go to resources, application roles. And in the application roles, what do we see here, guys? You see that there are 8 roles available in OIC. These are the standard roles given by Oracle. Point number 1, we cannot create custom roles. Point number 2, the role that you assign to the users would control what that user can see in the application and what that user can do in the application. Now, if you assign a service administrator role to a user, that means, what does it mean, guys? Administrator means, would he get a full
Admin.
access, guys? Yes.
Yes.
He would get the complete access. If you assign service admin role to a user, he would be able to see all the options within OIC instance, including the settings. He can do the development work and he can also control the settings as well. Now, now tell me one thing, guys. Oh, first of all, this OIC instance, is it a Gen 3 or Gen 2? It's a Gen 3 instance.
Gen 3.
And is it an enterprise edition or is it a standard edition?
Enterprise.
How do we know?
Process.
When we look the
Because we are
processes.
seeing process. Okay. The third question. Is this user, the user that I shared with you, is he an admin user or a normal user?
Admin.
Administrator, because you see settings here. Okay, 3 important things. So service administrator, if you assign to a user, they would be able to see all the navigation options, including the settings. Okay, so they will be able to do the development plus monitor the application as well. Just give me one moment, guys. Now, to whom do we normally assign service admin user, guys? Usually the leads on the client side and on the integration team side would get the service admin role. Okay, so if John Doe is an integration lead, he would get service admin role, and other developers would be assigned a developer role. Okay, now how do we assign roles? So you click on the menu option here, and when you click on a menu option, you click on manage. You would be able to see the users here. There are 2 administrators, and if I click on show available users, it is going to show me other users which are available or which are configured in identity domain cloud service. And if I want to grant or if I want to make this user or grant this user admin access to this OIC instance, I need to pick him up and I need to click on assign. Okay, so this is what I normally do, click and assign. And if I want to revoke, say for example, I want to take him out of the administrator group, I select it and I do a revoke. So that's how you normally do it. And you don't have to do one by one, guys. We also have REST APIs to create the users in bulk and assign roles also in bulk. Now, service administrator is one role that you need to be aware of. Service developer is another role. Now, service developer is equal to administrator minus settings. So if you assign a user service developer role, he would be able to see all the options except settings, and he would be able to do all the development. Okay, developer equal to admin minus settings. And apart from these 2 roles, you also have other roles which give very limited access to the users. Say, for example, monitor role. What do you guess from this one, guys? Monitor role. To which screen they might probably get access to, guys?
Observability.
Observability.
Absolutely. So, say for example, if you have a support team member and whose job is to not only to monitor integrations, they don't need to get into the coding part. You would assign service monitor role. And you also have service user role as well. Service user Remember, in VBCS, we create applications, right? And after we create those applications, the web applications would be used by the users on the client side. So to those users, we would either assign a service user role or a service end user role. And there is also one more role here called service invoker. Where exactly this would come handy, guys? So as you can make out from the name, this user can be used to invoke the services. Let me tell you one scenario where they would come handy. You see this REST API, guys? We created this integration. We did the unit testing, right? It's working as expected. What would be our next step? We share this endpoint URL. Since the integration is working as expected, we share this integration endpoint URL. We share the endpoint URL with a client, okay, or a third party, and tell them, boss, this is a URL you need to use to trigger my integration. And when they trigger our integration, of course, they have to pass in username and password, guys. They have to pass in authentication details, not username and password. Now, in what format a third party needs to, or a client needs to pass in authentication details to the endpoint URL, it would be determined by the trigger connection you have in the integration. Meaning you basically can control it, guys. So you can either use basic auth or you can use OAuth token, open authorization token. So we'll get into those details later on. But if you probably use basic authentication as a security policy for this REST API, not open authorization token, if you probably use basic auth, which means along with this endpoint URL, you need to share the OIC instance link. Sorry, along with this endpoint URL, you need to share the OIC instance username and password, guys. Okay, so you share this instance link, sorry, the endpoint URL, and you also share OIC username and a password. What if that third party tries to act smart, guys? And I'm not sure how many of you have already noticed it. Do you see the OIC instance link in the URL, guys?
Yes.
Yes. So what if that third party tries to act smart and try to log into this OIC instance with that username and password, guys? Possible, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So what is it that we are going to do? We are going to give the third parties a username and password. First of all, if the other third party has a capability to pass in token or token as an input, we use tokens for authentication. If the third party says, sorry, boss, I can only pass in my application only supports a basic auth, then okay, we will create a user. And to that user, what role do we assign, guys? Service invoker role. And we share that username and password with this third party. So the third party tries to invoke your service with that username and password, it works fine. And they want to act smart and they try to log into OIC instance. What is it that you would do, guys? Would they be able to see anything if they log into OIC instance with this role, guys? They won't be able to see any of these screens. They won't be able to see any of these screens, guys. And if you go to Google and say, type in something like OIC roles, okay, go into integration roles and privileges. And if you scroll down here, it says generally we have a different link, but I don't have time to search for the links here, relevant roles here, but this is okay. So if you scroll down here, first of all, you see the roles and you see the description. And the most important part is I want to show you one table here. So this table shows you which role gives you access to which screen in OIC. If you assign an admin role, what do they get to see, guys? Everything. Developer, what do they get to see? All
About setting.
minus settings. If you assign invoker role, do they get to see anything?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
So it's like we telling them, sorry boss, we are smarter than you. Please use it only for the intended purposes. Don't try to act smart. Okay, so that's how this service invoker role and other roles would come handy. So whatever I've explained so far with regards to the roles, it's more than enough that you need to know. Administrator, everything. Admin minus settings, developer. Invoker only can invoke a service. And other roles would give limited access to the users. If you want to get your PhD, please go to this particular link, spend a couple of hours and read more about it. but it is absolutely not required. Okay, so we have seen how to do 3 simple steps. Okay, how to create an OIC instance, how to create users, and how to grant them access to OIC instance. Now I'll ask you one simple question, guys. Please think about it very carefully and answer it. So we created dev OIC instance now. Tomorrow, we need to create a SIT OIC instance. Which of these steps do we need to repeat, guys? 3 steps we did, right? Create OIC instance, create user, assign roles to the users. If I have to create a new OIC instance tomorrow, what step do I need to repeat? Do we have to create OIC instance?
Yes.
Obviously, yes, because it is a new instance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do we have to create a user again?
No.
Yes.
No.
No, if it is a
absolutely
new
right.
user, you have to create, right?
Yeah, if it is a new user, usually
New
people
user.
doesn't change. So if we have to create additional users, you would anyways have to do them, and you do the user creation in OCI. That is what I want you to take a notice of. And when you create a new OIC instance, you need to again grant the access of that OIC instance to the users explicitly. Okay, so what it means is Murali Krishna can be a developer, can be an administrator in Dev OIC instance, but he can be only a developer in UAT instance, and he might probably get a monitor role in the production instance. Possible, yes or no, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all you need to know. So if you are able to understand what I have just explained, remember you don't need to do hands-on, guys. But I hope you guys are in a position now to understand what exactly happens before you get your OIC instance. And from Monday session, we will go ahead and get into the OIC instance, start building our first integration. Any questions, guys?
Yes, Prasad, Abhinav this side.
Mhm.
I saw there is an option in a resource list in IDCS to import so that you can create the bulk users, right? So the
Correct.
roles are going to be in the bulk as
Part
well,
of
or
it. Yeah, it would also be in bulk. And we also have REST APIs as well to create the users in bulk. Because see, if you have to create, say, 3,000 users, maybe they need to use a web app. It would be nightmare, right, for OCI admin. So we have
exactly.
Excel. Yeah. We have REST APIs available.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Murali Krishna.
Yeah, hi, Prasad. Prasad,
Hi.
I couldn't understand the question here. Can you please repeat it?
Which question?
Right now, another person asked.
So is there an option to create users in bulk in OCI screen? So I've shown you how to create a user here, right? So in the previous screen, I've shown you how to create a user by going into
Yes.
identity. Do we have to always create users one by one, or is there a bulk import option? So the answer is, if you go into more actions, we have an option to import users in bulk, and we also have REST APIs to create users as well in bulk instead of doing one by one. So what is your question?
Okay. Oh, got it. Right. Actually, there was the additional change you mentioned, right? If the request number is increasing more than 5,000, we can change to that enterprise edition. Oh, sorry. Yes, the number of for pack we can increase like that. So while we changing, and also for the edition, like that standard edition and the enterprise edition two are there, right? Let us we are in standard, and when we are changing to enterprise, existing setup will be impacted, or it will be like that only, because another two things will be added. So I thought that.
Yeah, so the existing integrations, everything would remain as is. So if you are moving from standard to enterprise, once the update is done, you would start seeing this additional option. Okay, so the other stuff in the integration instance would still remain the same. It would remain very well intact. Yes. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, Prasad, client is having infrastructure as a services, and who will do the cloning activity? Our client side, or Oracle only will do clone activity from production to dev instances?
Now, did I tell you that there is an option to clone the instance?
No, sorry for that.
Okay, no, nothing to be sorry about. I'm just asking it. I'll see when I ask you questions, guys. Don't get offended. I only ask them to encourage a discussion. See, for this one, guys, for a fusion, for OIC, we don't have a concept of cloning, guys. So remember, if it is a Fusion Cloud application, right? If it is a Fusion Cloud application, or if it is an e-business suite instance, right? So we have the concept of golden copy, or you have that P2T, P2D refreshes, right? Production to test and production to dev refreshes. That is applicable only for Fusion Cloud application, guys. Only for SaaS products, we do have an option to clone the instances, whether it is EBS or whether it is Fusion Cloud. But that is not applicable for OIC, guys. So that's why, if you remember on day 2, when we said that we would have 4 instances, right? So I was talking about migration aspects. That's precisely because of it. We don't have an option to clone one integration instance and create a copy of it. That's not possible. We cannot do it, neither Oracle, because it is an PaaS product. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Prashad, I have one question. Yesterday's, it is regarding yesterday's REST API. I just tried to do that. And I faced one issue where for banking, bank account, there was a setup, there was a requirement of bank code as per the UK setup in the banking account. But whereas the payload was not having that attribute, like a parameter. So that is a limitation of API, this REST API, or how it will be like?
In such cases, we have to, we need to see in that bank account REST API, not in the sample payload. You go up and see if that field is available or not. Okay, if that field is available, you try to pass it in the request payload. Normally, when we run into such issues like this one, we raise a SR with Oracle and try to get a clarification from them.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But as long as you're able to understand what is REST API, how does the invocation and all that stuff works, that's more than enough.
That is more than, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, guys. See you on Monday, and we will get started with first integration in OIC. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad.
Thank you.